Joining me now to discuss it all is Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha. He is a New York Times opinion contributor, co-host of the Latino Vote podcast, and president of Solidarity Strategies. Tara Setmeyer is here, former GOP communications director and CEO of the Seneca Project. And LaTosha Brown is also with us, co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund. Okay, Chuck, you know, all of this polling, take it with a grain of salt, I always tell folks. Sure. You know, polls are not predictive. They're indicative of a snapshot in time. And I also believe that this is going to be a close race here. Sure. So what do these polls tell us, though? Is this a sign that the messages from the convention are resonating?
Me and you've dealt with lots of candidates over our careers.
Yes. I used to work with Chuck Rocha, yes.
We've worked together with lots of candidates. And what I tell all the candidates is, look, it's one poll, but polls strung together will show you something that's happening. And I gave the Trump campaign credit early on. When their polls were moving, there was some stuff happening. And then there has been a definite shift. You know, I still work in lots of congressional races and Senate races around the country. And you talked earlier in the segment about focus groups. Mm-hmm. And what we're hearing in focus group is there's this real true-to-life energy out there. Mm. Does that mean we're going to win? Does that mean we need to have a parade tomorrow? No. It just means that there are things moving. There's only a small group of people in just a handful of states who's actually going to make the difference here. And those 6 states, one of those is Georgia that I know we're going to talk about.
One of those is Georgia. LaTosha, look, a lot of people said that this accelerated campaign would really be a race by both the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign to define Vice President Harris. Though it looks like, though, these polls mean that she has won the race about defining, or is that a wrong read of this?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think part of this idea of that she has to define herself, she has been in office for 3.5 years as part of an administration. And so some of that, I think, has been like a bait and switch, like let's throw something out when we don't have anything legitimate, a legitimate concern, particularly since she's rising in the polls. I think what we're seeing is we're actually seeing this energy and this momentum that is on her side right now. I think that the Republicans grossly underestimated the impact of coming after women with reproductive rights and reproductive justice. I think they grossly underestimated the impact of that and how I think that's playing itself out. What we're seeing is we're seeing young women register to vote at record numbers. We're seeing women volunteer at record numbers. And so part of what is happening is there's a lot of energy. There's a bump from the DNC, but I think there's a lot of energy based on who she is, but also what she stands for.
Tara, to LaTosha's point about perhaps the bad taste that has been left in voters' mouths with some of the things coming from Trump and Vance, at least half of voters in this Wall Street Journal poll have a bad impression of Donald Trump and his running mate. So if this was a normal campaign, you think this might be a sign to change the strategy, but these are not normal times, and it doesn't seem as though there's a chance of a strategy shift from the Trump camp.
Right, and these are also not normal candidates on the Trump side. There's nothing normal about J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, and it's perplexing to me that it's still only half of the American people have an unfavorable view of either one of them. I guess that speaks to a whole different set of issues we can diagnose at another time. But you're right. Anytime you're underwater, over 50% unfavorable, usually not a good trajectory. I think that there is something to be said, and LaTosha mentioned it, particularly about women and the way women have reacted to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and their campaign has been pretty remarkable. And the Republicans have been unable to counteract it. J.D. Vance seemed to find another category of women to insult every week. Donald Trump can't decide which con he's going to attempt to run on women in America, on his positions when it comes to reproductive rights, and whether they trust women to make their own health care decisions, because he knows that the position that they have taken and the actions that he has taken, that he's bragged about, impact women. It's taken a right away from American women, and they're mad as hell about it. And the idea of we won't go back is a very powerful one. And the Republican Party has yet to answer for it. And they can't, because they did this. They did this to us in this country. And there is no amount of marketing, of BSing that Donald Trump is going to put out there that's going to convince American women that he's not responsible for the fact that we've lost a right.
I think
and that
Donald
Kamala
Trump
Harris is in a position, right, to defend that and to make sure that we try to get those rights back. They're not going to win this.
I think Donald Trump would love nothing more than to be able to change the narrative here. And again, I don't see it either. stranger things have happened, Chuck Rocha, but I just don't see it. Let's just put in perspective what Tara and LaTosha have put on the table here, because there is a split screen happening. You know, for the past 2 days, Vice President Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz have been campaigning in Georgia, in southern Georgia, a place the last time that they saw a Democratic presidential candidate was 1992. I'm talking about Bill Clinton. It seems as though that energy that came from the Democratic National Convention is now, they're deploying that, if you will, in the South Georgia. And there is a Gallup poll that kind of speaks to this as well. There's a lot of excitement among Americans about the election. In this poll, nearly 70% are more enthusiastic than usual about voting. Enthusiasm is important. That's up 15 points from March, by the way. It's an all-time high for Gallup. Enthusiasm is not the only thing campaigns need, right? I like to say, you know, we work for Bernie Sanders. Crowds don't necessarily vote.
That's right.
But enthusiasm matters,
It does matter when you're trying to get folks. And let's go back to Georgia, because enthusiasm matters here, because in Georgia, folks are younger. There's 1 million Latino voters in Georgia. 1 million. There's a lot of people who have moved to Georgia because it's a great place to live. It's young, it's energetic. There's the film industry. There's all this stuff going on, which has attracted lots of young people. Those same young people, just 3 months ago, were saying, I'm not sure. We're not that ginned up. They have a new fire. And there's one thing that me and Simone can tell all of you about a campaign. There's a golden rule in campaigns, which there's one thing you can never get back in a campaign, and that's time. For them to be spending time in Georgia, they would not be doing this close to the election. It's too late for head fakes. They're down there because they can win that state, and their numbers say that. So watch where they go. That tells a lot.
LaTosha, I mean, Black Voters Matter have been traveling all over the country, engaging voters, telling them, you know, to get registered so they can exercise their voice at the polls. If you look at this same Gallup polling, and we drill down on enthusiasm numbers for Democratic voters, it's at 78%. Democrats have not seen numbers like that since 2008. So put this in perspective for us. How do Harris, Walz, and also down ballot Democrats make sure that this pays off in November?
You know, I think they're doing the right thing. I think particularly the campaign, I agree with everything they've said. That part of what has happened is normally we'll see in these campaigns where you go to these centers, these urban centers, and just campaign there, when in fact in those rural areas, although those counties may not necessarily flip from Republican to Democrat, what you do is you shave off some of that advantage in those counties. That when you look at the rural South, and you look at particularly North Carolina and Georgia, which is 2 southern states that are at play, that there are Black people and people of color and Latinos and the AAPI community that live in these rural areas. And so to go to those areas, to talk to folks, to galvanize, to actually have a message, I think that in itself is actually going to make a difference. So I think at this point, that what you got to do is go tap into people, to that untapped source of younger voters, voters of color, and women. I believe that will be the winning ticket, and progressive.
Well, people will be out on the campaign trail. The candidates are out there taking their case to the voters. One of the things that we are all watching for, obviously, is the debate. And the Associated Press is reporting that ABC has given both candidates the rules for next month's debate, and the microphones will be muted when the other candidate is speaking. Now, the Harris campaign insists it's still discussing that with ABC. NBC News is reporting that Harris's team is working on strategies to get under Donald Trump's skin during the debate, so he can just be, I think what they are saying is fully unhinged. Tara, seems to me like these two are connected. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I think the fact that Kamala Harris is on that stage standing next to him already gets under Donald Trump's skin. So she's already has a leg up there. He has never been fully prosecuted or cross-examined in front of the American people the way that Kamala Harris is about to do on September 10th. She is a career prosecutor. She's a woman and a woman of color. She is not going to take Donald Trump's nonsense. And she's very skilled at this. If anybody ever watched the way Kamala Harris prosecuted the cases when she was a senator, when she had those Republican witnesses in front of her during the Trump administration, has a taste of what she's capable of. And Donald Trump's campaign is well aware of this, which is why they've been having these nonsense process arguments to try to go after the debate and the rules, and it's an expectations game, because they are scared to death of how Donald Trump is going to behave on that stage. We all saw how he behaved at the National Association of Black Journalists when he was challenged just for a couple of minutes by Black women. So imagine on a stage this large with this much riding on it, how Donald Trump is going to behave. That is what this is about. He is so afraid of what's going to happen, and that's why he's projecting. Everything that he says about her, he's projecting because that's how he actually is. He's incompetent, he can't debate, and he's not ready or fit for the job. That's who Donald Trump is. And she's going to expose that on September 10th.
All these debates about debates kind of makes you miss the Commission on Presidential Debates. LaTosha Brown, thank you so much for your time tonight. Chuck